Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of the Odyssey Podcast, brought to you by Media. I'm your host, Jeremy Mully. I'm here with a very special guest today. He's been a coveted guest because I've been waiting to get him on for a long time. So finally, I snatched him off the street and got him in the studio, and we're doing our episode, first of many, I hope. His name's Kyle Spyrides, and he's from SGP and DYD. And for our listeners who are probably thinking, what on earth is that? Could you explain what those are, Kyle?
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, JM. Jeremy
We're just going to talk in acronyms.
Yeah. It'll be a podcast of acronyms. Yeah, that's the segment. No, so SGP is Soul Gazing Photography, and that's the business that I've run for 6 years. And this DYD is Decide Your Destiny, and that's a legacy project that my grandfather passed down to me, and I've turned that into a movement and a mission, centralized around personal growth, around tapping into your full potential, and really diving deep and extracting your humanity and extracting humanity in other people. So, and now I'm the custodian of that movement, thanks to my grandfather, and they're the two things that I've got going amongst other things is obviously you do as well, and as a business owner, you got multiple things on the floor.
That's it, mate. But hey, let's keep it on you. I'm very shy, so we'll get it about
JM from IM.
That's good. But listen, I really want to talk about that mission you have, and especially around Decide Your Destiny. But before we do jump into that, because the way I first met you was in your capacity as a photographer, and obviously that they're still related to what you're doing in your mission. So could you tell me about how you became to be a photographer and how that culminated in soul gazing photography?
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. So I was having lattes at this coffee shop, and I was just thinking, how can I be more indie? And then, just joking. That's how a lot of my mates, when they said I want to be a photographer, that's how they kind of categorized me and put me in a box, and you're going to be one of those, So, but no, I was actually taking photographs in Ireland, and what had happened in my young life at that time, I'd come out of school, had 2 months out of school, working out, thinking about what I'm going to do, and then I got really, really ill, and then I ended up in an induced coma, nearly died, spent 6 weeks in hospital, then nearly died, for about a year was trying to get myself back to better health, then went in for a big surgery, and then nearly died again, and then so I had this whole condensed period after school where it was like literally. And also before that, in my teenage years, like trying to survive through trauma, and mental, emotional trauma. And then after school, after graduating school, I was able to graduate to physical trauma. Lucky me. And then that was the new project, I guess, the new building of my character. And so that kind of happened. And then it was just like, wow, I haven't really had much of a life just yet. I haven't thrived in my life, maybe, as a young kid, but I've just been trying to survive for so long. So I then moved into, I went, okay, well, I might as well go to Europe. A couple of my friends were wanting to go to Europe. I said, look, let me live. Like nothing sounds like living than going to Europe, and traveling around country to country, island to island. And so I decided to do that, going from hospital gowns to bathers in Santorini sounded like a swell idea. So that's where I went, and I had a couple of friends, and they traveled around, and they only traveled around for a few months. So I actually they only traveled around for 6 weeks, and then I ended up in Europe, staying in Europe for 7 months.
Wow.
So I kind of I think I enjoyed the joint. And
seems that way, yeah. And were you, again, was it that kind of nomadic life? Were you jumping from a few places, or did you just stay in a certain area?
I was moving most of the time.
Yep.
I did my travels with them, and then I met a friend on a different travel that I went on, where I knew no one, but I just jumped on this group of people that were traveling, and I met this friend, and we traveled around Spain and Italy and these different places, and then Prague. I think Prague was the last place, and then he actually said, "Oh, do you want to keep traveling?" I was like, "Mate, I don't." I'm pretty thin on the pocket line, And he was like, "Oh, look, I'll pay for your flight here, but and then you just pay me back." And so I was like, "Oh wow, geez." And he was actually a FIFO worker from WA, and I was living in Sydney at the time. So, he's like, "Yeah, I've got a bit of coin," and so he shouted me like a flight somewhere, and we traveled a little bit more. And then eventually, I was fully out, so I had to go and stay with my stepfather. So I've got my half sister in London. Spent with a week with her, and then I went and stayed with my stepfather in Ireland. And then when I was in Ireland, he's got a chiropractic practice in Dublin, and then on the west coast, he's built houses. So he's built like quite a few, renovated like old houses, historic sort of joints. And so we're on the west coast in one of his houses, and I was just kind of surfing and getting out of my comfort zone, really, because he's great at that. Like, I did not want to surf in Ireland in booties, in a full suit, and he got me in there, and then eventually I started to like it, and I was just surfing the whole time. And every time you do a duck dive, you get an instant migraine, so it's really freaking cold.
Yeah.
And there's no sand. You're jumping off rocks, and you're trying to make sure your fiberglass board doesn't get holes in it. And when you get washed up on the rocks, you kind of don't want your foot to get snagged in between rocks. Yeah. So when there's big swell, it's pretty dangerous. But yeah, there was a beautiful element to it, and there was not a lot of people. And so I had a camera with me this whole time traveling, and I took a few photos here and there. But then, because I was staying in that one spot, I just went out every day and I started taking photos. And it was the first time I probably took photos of the same thing over and over again. And a camera my grandparents gave me. And then, so, yeah, I just kept taking photos. And then my stepfather said, "Well, why don't you do this as a career?" And I just chuckled. I was like, "Photography? Like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about, man? I think being in the country has got to your head." And he goes, "No, why don't you do this?" And he said, "Your uncle." I went, "Oh, my God. What was I thinking?" My uncle was a famous photographer in Sydney, And so then, suddenly the mind starts opening. You start thinking bigger dreams and goals. And then I came back to Sydney. And I studied to be a photographer at the same diploma that my uncle studied years before. And then I did work experience with him. And I was on sets like for Commonwealth Bank and NRMA, Qantas Wallabies, and all these major sets where there's multi-million dollar advertising campaign for this one shoot. The photos, so he's a billboard photographer. So he's actually got a billboard up in Fremantle, and he came over to Perth the other week to shoot for Red Cross, and he said, "Oh, that billboard, that's my photo." So incredible resource to learn from when you learn photography. And one of the greatest lessons I learned was in terms of the management of people in a high stakes environment. So, for instance, you got the Qantas Wallabies, and you got Quade Cooper, and you got Adam Ash Cooper. You got all these different sports celebrities. You got a short period of time with them, and they're all around each other. They're all chatting. They're all, interacting, and then you got someone that is working with them. So like someone who manages the players, and also, as the photography company, you've got all these production team. You've got all these assistants. You've got everything. So time is really, really money, and one of the the lady that was managing the sports stars was kind of doing a bit of a nosy peek and saying, "Oh, this is like his better side," or like, "Mo, try this, try that." And then anyway, he went through the whole shoot, and then someone came up to my uncle and said like, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that." And then I had no idea what was going on. Like, why are people apologizing to him? And what I worked out was that, in that shoot, you need everything in control. You need everything down pat, and you can't have someone coming in trying to, what would you say, grab the headlock the direction of the shoot. And so something like that, where if you're shooting a wedding, you're shooting like a kid's birthday, and someone's like, "Oh, try this, try that," where it's a lot more casual. Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, although that's incredibly annoying as well.
Yes, yeah. Any videographer can reminisce on the lovely people that direct you.
Yeah.
But it was just so interesting to see how much the other people were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry about that." Like, "Oh," And it was because of such a high pressure moment. You've got this celebrity for a certain amount of time. You've got to get this shot done right. This shot's going on a freaking billboard. If you've got someone kind of interrupting, the flow, then it really messes up. And I mean, thinking that in a philosophical element, since 2020, like our lives have been totally interrupted. Your rhythms, your routines, your habits, everything's been interrupted, and so we can all relate at like how much that affects us, and then it has a compounding effect. So on a project like that, one little interruption here, a bit of like attention lost by the athletes, it just could have a compounding effect. Then that job doesn't go well, and then you're no longer trusted as a go-to. So it was just, there were so many crucial lessons that I learned, and they were all through observation. And that's what I'd say to any budding photographer, videographer, creative, is really honing on that skill. And that's what my grandparents taught me. Is because my grandfather he's an architect, so he was an incredible observer. He was always observing everything. I just noticed that's what he was doing the whole time. Fully present, fully aware. If you can learn through observation, like you will learn tenfold. It's like that whole thing where they say, if you want to be a millionaire, go spend a weekend just being around a millionaire, like getting them coffee, whatever it is, and you'll pick up so many things. So that's really what I got from that experience.
Yeah, and I'm always fascinated with the names people select for, either their business or an organization or whatever it may be, even a book. Soul gazing. Can you tell us how you came to land on that as a name for your photography business?
Yeah. So I was doing the diploma, and we had a project at the end of it where we had to submit all our portfolio and then print it out on walls, and then we would have family and friends come in and we'd get marks on it, and it was a part of our assessment. And everyone had all these like different ideas of what they were going to do, and my idea was to take photographs of my family in the same location with the same lighting, so natural lighting in the same location. And it sounds very simple, but I had this vision that I felt if you sat down with someone long enough and you talked to them and you just extracted a little bit more, layer by layer, eventually there'd be this millisecond where they would reveal their soul. Like my belief, I mean, everyone's got their own belief, but I believe we all have a soul. I believe we all have that, that thing deep inside of us that just has that sort of, it's more than your personality, it's that character. And so that's something that I just believe in. So like with my grandfather, I would talk to him, and then he would have he'd just look out of the window, and he'd just have this second of just, he forgot the camera was there. He forgot what he totally, there was a disconnect from what we were doing, and he went deep within himself, and he was embodying who he truly was. And so I, in that moment, took the photo and I captured his soul. I believed every time I sat down with a family, and grandparents were a lot easier, young kids were a lot easier, teenagers were the hardest because they've got so many veils of identities that they've picked up, that they've been directed to have, or who they should be, or who the coolest in-trend person is to re-emulate. So, with teenagers, it took like maybe 2 hours. With my grandfather, maybe it took half an hour. And yeah, that's where the soul gazing, because I felt like you could gaze into someone's soul and pull that image out. So, and it's interesting actually, Aboriginals believe, like there's a belief of, if you take a photograph of someone, like someone in the tribe, that you could capture their soul, and they believe that like don't like having photographs taken because they don't want their soul to be captured. So I was going against that moral law, I guess.
I guess. But look, I wanna we touched on it earlier, and again, it would be a nice segue, since we are talking about the soul and how you've chosen to capture the soul through photography. But now your broader mission is, and you've called it, decide your destiny. Could you tell us about how that mission started for you, and what it's led up to today? So let's start with where it began.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks. I am from Ithaca Media. So yeah, DYD, Decide Your Destiny. That they were three words that my grandfather shared with me, and he shared them with me on, like I guess the time was just a nice sunny summer's day. I was sitting in the lounge room, and we weren't talking about anything, we weren't sharing anything, and he just turned to me and he just said, "Decide your destiny." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Decide your destiny." I said, "What are you saying, Clivey?" And he said, make sure whatever you do in your life that you decide your destiny. And I didn't think about it, kind of when he went one ear, went out the other. And this was like right towards the end of my school. So 2 months later, I was in induced coma. I had a whole bunch of other things that I was dealing with. So obviously that phrase didn't really, it didn't pierce my soul at that moment. And then many years later, I went back to Sydney. I cared for my grandfather as he passed away, held his hand as he passed on from this place. And surreal experience, both incredibly beautiful and obviously heart-aching, but I'm really, really grateful that I was there. And I came back to Perth, and I was just sitting down and I just was in this deep prayer, and I was just like, closing my eyes, I was saying, dear God, ether, universe, energy, please help me get on path, I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of social disapproval. Not afraid of embarrassment, which is funny. Usually embarrassment and death are like neck to neck for people's biggest fears. I just want to get on path right now. I don't want to waste any more of my time. I don't want to be in and out of multiple different relationships or this and that or whatever it is. I don't want to waste any more time on this planet. I want to be on path now with the reason that I was sent here, with the mission that I was sent here to fulfill. And I just had that, and then all of a sudden this book kind of came out like from like the bottom left of like my kind of visualization, and I just got this message, and it just said like share your story, and then that's where I started to get into it. And then I guess like decide your destiny just came in pretty much straight away, like in that vision it came in to call the book Decide Your Destiny.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to ask, because you said when it was first, those words were first said to you by your grandfather, didn't quite sink in. So when did it sink in, and that like really, I guess, when did you understand the meaning of those words, or when did they take real meaning for you in your life?
In that moment, because I was trying to decide my destiny, and people might say, oh, you decided to be a photographer, where parent, and I mean, I grew up, I had a family around me where there was a famous photographer, yet the family was still doubtful about my decision to become a photographer and to make money in that area. So it's amazing how much, you're going to have like the naysayers of your family members, and they have a lot more sway over you than random people that go, oh, you're going to be a photographer. Good luck, So it's interesting in that element. And so people might say, oh, you became a photographer, you did decide your destiny, However, I just felt like there was something more that I had to tap into. And that's where those words really came from. I also had a really close friend of mine who we were chatting, and she just said, how are you normal? I said, what do you mean? She said, like you've been through so many different, traumas and different sort of challenges in your life. You're not on drugs, you're not like on the, like all these sorts of things. Like, how are you normal? I was like, I never thought to investigate how I'm normal. But obviously deciding destiny is to be like extraordinary. It's to be bold. It's to be out of your comfort zone and go after it. And that's really where it came to fruition, is, okay, I want to try and create this thing. It seems like an impossible feat. It seems like totally out of reach of my current state. I want to get there. How do I do something today that is deciding my destiny? How do I do something today that's a commitment to deciding that destiny and bringing that future forward?
Yeah. So can you just explain a little bit what that destiny is, and what the purpose of your mission is in Decide Your Destiny, around like what you want to achieve, for yourself, and then for the others that you're drawing into this and bringing into this mission alongside you?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, with my grandfather, in those last few days, what I saw was, and I'd always seen him as the happiest man like that I'd ever met in my life. I was like, I never met a happier man. I know some people that are with hundreds of millions of dollars that I've had a chance to meet with and spend time with. I know people that are, the most acclaimed like creatives, and like have all this attention. So I've been able to meet, strangely enough, I've been able to meet people in all sorts of areas of life. And then my grandfather, I was able to see him like right into, like as he was literally wasting away, as he was dying, He was smiling, he was laughing, he was chatting, he was interacting. He had one moment where he was like, I think someone asked him like, "Oh, do you have any regrets? Do you have any, And he said, "No." And then he said, "Oh, that I think it was George Pell bastard or something like some I think guy that had a pedophile allegations. I was like, wow, he's at his last breath and he's still fighting for humanity. Like, isn't that incredible? So, and he also, my stepfather asked him like some questions, and he said, and my grandparents were, I guess they had a belief, but they weren't dogmatic, religious people, and nothing against anybody on either side of the spectrum, but like they would go to church every now and then, and those sorts of things, and I think he was part of a church like school for like young kids and things like that when he was younger, like looking after young kids and things like that. So, but they were so generous. They had, I think, over 150 different families stay at their house. They had exchange students from US, China, from country, Aboriginal students from country, Australia. They had like relationship, different families stay at their house all the time. Family members when their house was being foreclosed, all sorts of stuff. So they were super generous, super giving, and super kind people. Like, they're truly angels. And so my grandfather, my stepfather asked him, like, what do you see? Like, what are you seeing? Because he kept coming in and out of consciousness. And he was like very lucid, he was telling everyone how much he loved everyone. And, he was more of that stoic, Aussie sort of grandfather. And so, he said, what do you see? And he said, I see Jesus. And we went like, what? And then he said, well, what does he look like? Which is, I guess, that's my stepfather asking that inquisitive question. What does he look like? Which probably a lot of people ask. Like, what label is he? And he just said, what does he look like, Clive? He goes, and he just closes his eyes and he just like smiles. He just goes, love. And he just had this big warm smile. And they said, and we're like, where is he? He's like, oh, he's standing by the river he's standing by the river and he's got a boat for me. So I'm like, this man is literally wasting away. He's dying. He's smiling. He's joking. He's still got this humanitarian element to him, and he is going forth into the next, expression of his soul. And I was just like, this is just incredible being. I just don't know. I've never met people like that. So for me, he had decided his destiny, and he had lived a good life and left a good legacy, and he was happy and ready to go. He'd decided his destiny in terms, he'd said, I never worked a day in my life, Kyle. I loved architecture. I loved, drawing. He built his own house in an area that his family said, why are you building down there? There's no sewage line down to Cronulla at the time. He had business and he became a professor and all these sorts of things. When his teachers, he dropped out of school, and his teacher said he'd be hopeless, wouldn't end up as anything. And so he turned off the volume of everyone else's shit throwing on his life and telling him what he was and trying to dictate his destiny. And he went out and he decided his destiny in all areas. So that's really what the goal is to decide in all areas, in a humanitarian element, in a spiritual element, in a financial element, in a professional element, in a creative element, in familial and relationships. So that's what it is. It's like, he showed me an example, and I was very lucky to have that example. I didn't have any example early on in my life, and I actually had an opposite example of a degenerative way, and so to generate that sort of life, and to live in that way, in that style, to move with so much joy and happiness and presence and love. And when you talk to him, he was interested in you. He was 100% interested in you. And I was just like, and my grandmother's right there with him. But he was obviously the one that gave me that message. And just incredible being. And so the Decide Your Destiny mission, personally, what Decide My Destiny is to have each area of my life as fulfilled as possible. And obviously it's like, any sort of goal or a moving target. It's not, I got this number, so now I can be happy. It's, wow, who have I become in the driving towards that goal? Who have I become in how have I changed? How have I evolved? How have I got myself out of my comfort zone every single day? who am I connected with? What am I doing that like a year ago I would not even think about doing? That is the real reason for having those goals. The evolution of your soul, of who you are, of your heart, of who you're showing up as. And so my grandfather really gave me that role model and gave me that kind of, I guess, that pathway. And I understand what deciding your destiny is. It's not about, okay, I'm just going to focus on business now and my relationship can kind of suffer for a bit. And this happens so much in life with so many different people. I like the person I was telling, like different people that I know that are mega wealthy. And I looked at it and I went, this isn't wealth. This isn't, richness. They've got relationship issues. This one's an alcoholic. This one, and I just went, that's not living like fully being, extracting everything of you. That's doing this area really well and not the other areas. And the same can be, I'm a positive, optimistic, happy person. And it's like, oh, did you pay for your kids' dental work? No, I couldn't afford it, but don't worry. Or did you, are you going to show up, clean and presentable so the person that you're sitting opposite doesn't have to waft in your odor, whatever it is.
I hope it's not a shot against me.
Yeah, God, I mean, can he catch a break? No, I'm joking, man. No,
you're right.
You're always presentable.
But I want to ask, because now that's brought us to your book, which is soon to be available in fine bookstores everywhere.
Oh.
But
with your help.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I want to get a sense of, how you came to write the book and what can we expect to glean when we get the chance to actually read it.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it was the gentleman who brought us the iPhone, Steve Jobs. I think he said something along the lines of you know where you're going by joining the dots looking backwards, and I, through this whole deciding destiny and all that sort of stuff in the book, I had to start looking at my own life, and I'd look at my grandfather and I'd look at different mentors in my life, different people that taught me how not to live, people that taught me how to live. And then so I went, okay, let me actually start looking at my own life. Like what happened in my life? What did I do? And so there were pretty bold decisions that I made in my life. And in terms of being a teenager and going out on my own, out of an abusive environment. When I was in hospital, I was actually given an opportunity to, the first time when I was in a coma, I was given an opportunity to operate then and there, and then I was going to have a very affected life, and then I was also given an opportunity by my stepfather. He flew over from Ireland at the time. He said, there's this thing called the alkaline diet. And I went, okay, what's that about? And he said, well, basically, the alkaline diet is you go on this juice fast and you change the ecosystem of your body. And the philosophy is that the bug won't have anything to sustain itself anymore and it'll die off. And so I had no idea about that. All I knew at school was how to build biceps and beach looking muscles and for rugby. I ate a lot of eggs and things like that.
As you do.
Yeah, as you do when you're trying to build eggs on your body. So he shared this with me, and I just went, okay, I trust you as a man. And then I did that juice cleanse, and then 3 weeks into the hospital experience, the bug was gone. We got rid of the bug naturally, and so I'm not saying one way or the other. 12 months later, I went and had a major surgery, but I was able to repair things instead of prior. I didn't give myself an opportunity. If I'd done the surgery then, everything would have been cut, chopped off, metal attachments, replacements, all sorts of things, and life affected heavily. So I'd given myself the best opportunity to go and have a surgery where I was able to repair things, use some of the organs, own tissue, and some other organic tissue and things like that. So that whole experience, was a joining of the natural health, which has been around for thousands of years, and the medical advancement, which has been around for a few hundred years, that has helped. And so joining those two elements was really great, and most people wouldn't be able to do it. They'd either go one way or the other, or their ego would be caught up in one element or the other, or if the natural thing worked, then they'd stay completely away from that. But in my position, I had to use the medical, so I had to find a way how could I use both, and kind of not have a life affected heavily at the age of 18. So all these, I had to look back in my life and all these different moments where I did decide my destiny. And I went, wow, okay, there's been a few moments, been a few pivotal moments where I just went and decided my destiny. And every time I took a major risk, I took a major chance, I did something totally out of my normal operating system, and I went for it, like something incredible happened. And I pushed through a new threshold of who I am, and not even who I am, but how I thought. It's kind of like you see the world with like a tinted orange filter, and then you push through this threshold and you see the world through a bit of a lighter blue filter. And it was just like everything was different to me, and how I took everything in, and how my mind worked, and how much anxiety and fear that I had discarded because of those previous experiences. So that was really, I guess, where I started seeing, okay, I've decided my destiny in a few elements here, and how can I continue going forward with it? And then the book came about, 2020. We obviously had this virus, and then my family were very worried about me and my health and things like that. And then I was also made redundant from my sales job. So it was like this another moment of compression, which means great growth if you take it the right way. So I went, you know what, I need to take matters into my own hands again. And I just went on this program. I didn't look up a program, but I got up every morning. I went for a hour-long jog, juiced, did visualizations, did all these different things that I knew from previous. And I had some procedures coming up, to take things out of my body, put different objects in, and get put on more medications and all these sorts of things. And so I had this coming up in a 6 month period. So I went, okay, that's the wall or the goal. I'm going to try and get my body in the best shape possible before that time comes up, and I'm just going to see what the numbers are. So ever since I was 18, I've been managing the numbers. I've been going back to the professionals and seeing what the numbers are. And there's this part of your heart that they measure, which is called your ejection fraction. And your ejection fraction, obviously the blood ejecting, but it measures how they use it to measure how strong your heart is. And so normal people's ejection fraction's 55 to 65, and once you get to like low 30s to like 20s, you can't get on airplanes. It's very touch and go sort of life. And mine was at 34 for 10 years, 34 the whole time. And so I went back to my electrosurgeon, and he did all the measurements and everything, and he just sat back in his chair and he just went, I don't know what to do with you. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I just don't know what to do with you. I said, what? He said, your heart is enjoying, because that was another thing, one of the procedures I had eventually developed into atrial fibrillation. He said, your heart's enjoying being in AF. Only 5% of hearts enjoy being in AF post-surgery, and you're well after surgery and your heart's enjoying it. Your heart's stronger. Everything's better. Your ejection fraction's at 49% now. And that was the number that I was just like, what? Like, that hasn't changed. And he just went, wow. And he just like sat back in his seat. He's like, I don't know what to do. And he went, you know what, we'll hit you with everything. And he said, okay, we're going to book you in for procedure. And these procedures weren't essential, so I'm not saying anything against that, but it was like different things to try and help. Because when you've got that sort of thing, you've got to think about longevity the whole time. You're constantly thinking about what are the things that we can put in, the chess pieces we can move to make sure we're looking after longevity, so taking away alcohol, taking away different sort of things, and what things can we do to kind of set you up for the best longevity. So it's like a financial planner for your health.
Your body.
Yeah, for your body, exactly. So he said, okay, wrote me these scripts. I went out, and then I was in the pharmacy, and I had this message, I felt like this message kind of hit me, and I was just like, what are you doing? I was like, what? It's like this message is like, what are you doing? And it said, you know what to do. Get out of here. And for me, personal experience, no advice, you do what you have to do. My personal experience with the medications is I was on the lowest dose, and I would go to get up, and I'd fall down, and I would sleep throughout the day. So just for some reason, some chemical, I don't know what, but the lowest dose of the medications would just knock me for 6, and my lifestyle was gone. And I would do, I guess, self experiments, but I would do, like a year and a half on them, go back multiple times, and then I'd do a year off, and there'd be nothing changed. So they weren't essential medications, but they were medications to improve the functions and hopefully improve the numbers. And so that was like that whole experience, you know, whilst I was jogging, whilst I was getting up, whilst I was doing this thing, whilst I was out of my comfort zone, whilst I was, I guess, going against, you know, like what I'd been told, I was just writing this book. It was just coming out of me. It was just coming out of me every morning. It was just oozing out of me. And then obviously you've got to go and edit that thing, you know, and that was the next stage. But that experience, I think, that, and it's always from those major compressions, you know, and I think, you know, when you have something in terms of your health, you build so many skills. You know, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And if you can overcome health situations, no matter what they are, you've built so many different skills of resilience, of management, of prioritizing, of, you know, you probably become a bit more of a philosopher or have a philosopher's view of life and things like that. So that was all coming out into the book. And then, yeah, that's pretty much how it came. It was just that program of 6 months just going, my ejection fraction hasn't changed from 34%. I think it went to 35 one year and went back down to 34. Hasn't changed, this bloody number. I'm going to focus my mind on it and I've got to change it. I've succeeded with my health before in the past, giving myself the best chance. Now let's just do it. And that's what happened. So, you know, for a lot of people, they're going like, well, what was the plan? What was the program? Like, I need the structure, need the number, and, you know, like for me, it was just that commitment, you know, committing to that goal, committing to that thing. And it was, I think it's like, I was on a routine that I'm still trying to get back into, but when you've got your back against the wall, like you get up 4 a.m., you sometimes get up at 3:30, you know, because you're that ready to go after the day because you've got this big thing that your back's against the wall. So that's probably something that has been a major thing is trying to bring that back in. You know, how can I bring that back against the wall sort of attitude, because that's really where you start excelling, you know. And then, yeah, that's where the book came out, and the book's got 7 sections. You know, so it covers 7 sections, and each section has like exercises at the end of it. So then it's just really like, not just like, here's my story. It's how can you begin to sign your destiny in each different category of your life. And yeah, man, it's been pretty awesome.
Yeah, and those 7 areas, what are they, just for people who, because I imagine that they're pretty similar to a lot of, you know, a lot of mentors in the space. They usually categorize them into 7 areas. Like, just what are those 7 areas and how do they correspond to the chapters?
Yeah, 100%. So you've got a youth, and youth is where extracting from your youth, extracting what lessons you learnt, extracting also some of the attitudes of younger people, that kind of bold nature, that risk-taking, that fearlessness, that not needing every analytical measurement to go and start sort of nature. And then also kind of some of the experiences of your youth that could still be impacting you to this day, both positively and negatively. Then we go into family, and so family. We're going to heroes and mentors. So heroes and mentors are like people like my grandfather, people like my uncle, different people in my life. So, and then we work through like, who are some of the heroes and mentors in your life? Both maybe, you know, Batman might have been a hero, or Superman, Spider-Man might have been a hero. Okay, what were the qualities that made them heroic to you? And then also the personal heroes, and then also how to go out and identify the right heroes and mentors for you. Because if you're going to want to succeed in life, you need to have coaches, you need to have people in different areas of your life that are going to help you and show you the way. And then we go into family and relationships, what relationships to invest more into. And sometimes in my life, I've had to kind of leave some relationships, because sometimes some relationships are like shackles, imprisoning you, like you know, pulling you down when you're going for this potential or this person, and they don't want you to change, because you changing is a mirror of them not changing. And so we go into the family section, and then we go into purpose, and there's a purpose wayfinder, and then so we're helping you find your purpose, source your purpose. Then heart and soul, and that goes the heart story, which I talked about today, and really kind of figuring out your heart and soul and what that means. What are those deeper elements to life rather than just the physical material? What is that real essence, that kind of gnawing, I know there's something deeper to this, or I know there's something more to this. And then go to mindset, which is like a huge part. And then we go to God and wisdom in the end, which is just basically, like, how do you have faith in your life? How do you build faith? How do you kind of, whatever it is to you, maybe it's philosophy, maybe it's, maybe you don't call it God, maybe you don't call it wisdom, maybe you call it something else. But we go through that sort of structure and how you have faith through the chaos. Life is both chaos and pristine peace. And it's how do you have that faith, when it's pristine peace and like, you're like, I'm okay now, like I don't need to do much, but hey, if you're just standing still, you're going backwards. And then the chaos when you got your back against the wall, how do you kind of deal with all these moving parts and proceed? So yeah, that's the sections, man.
Yeah, gotcha. And I want to ask you, because it's been like the journey itself, just for the writing journey is fascinating to me. And I want to get a sense of, because you kind of mentioned it before, how sometimes you might have, the naysayers, the people who like say, but you've already decided what you're doing. What are you doing this for? Like, because that's something that I suppose is common for a lot of people who have these kind of dreams and these kind of visions, and you've gone ahead and done it. What's the advice you'd give to someone who may be having that external pressure, whether that be from family or from other people, from close friends, but usually it's the closest ones that we actually listen to, so like that they have the biggest impact on us. Is that something you've had to overcome yourself? And if so, what have you done to overcome those voices if they've been there? Well,
so I mean, you've hired people in the past, I've hired people in the past, we've had people in our teams, different sort of things, and one element that I keep trying to have front of mind as much as possible is communication. Like communication, like it's one of the most important things, that we have on this planet. But communicating to other people, hey, this is where I'm going. This is what it's going to take. For this period of time, my phone's probably going to be off because I'm going to be back against the wall. But just letting you know, like, are you wanting to come with me? Because when you come with me, it's going to be a wild ride. It's going to be awesome. And obviously, there's different ways with different relationships that you're gonna kind of proceed with it. The biggest thing, I mean, this is slightly not answering your question, but
no, I want an answer.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
It's a big guy. I don't want to piss him off.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No. One of the most dangerous places to be is with a little success. Because with a little bit of success, and I can bring it back to your question, but with a little bit of success, you don't find a need and a reason. And that's kind of the whole thing I was talking about, that ejection fraction. The world's going through this chaotic moment. The family's concerned. All these different elements in my life. This number's not changing. I'm going to have to do more and more. And my mind going, when does this end? When do all these procedures and medications and everything end for me? It's been since I was 18 years old. And so all those pressures made, okay, I'm going for it 133%. I'm going all in with my whole heart and soul. And then once you did that, it's kind of like, oh. And that's what it is that little bit of success is very, very dangerous, because you feel like you don't need to keep moving forward. And it's like your health, your heart health, you got to keep on it. Like, it's not something that you go, oh, I've done this much for this year, now I should be good for the rest of my life. And so with family and friends, you might get a little bit of success and they'll tell you, oh, you're doing good enough. You're doing well. Like, you don't need to go to that next level. You don't need to put, like.
Yeah. Do like, you feel it might lull you into like a sense of contentment where you don't want to, exceed or push ahead or beyond that?
Yes. So when I was in hospital, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a rugby player. I wanted to play for the Springboks. I had this idea, and I had naysayers. I had cousins who said, why do you think they'd care about you? Like, who are you? All those sorts of things. And I was like, I don't care. I'm going for this goal. And that goal, as a teenager, got me out of an incredibly dark time where I don't know if I would still be here. That goal got me through the hospital, where even though I was told that I probably most likely won't be able to do it, I would have dreams every night. And that goal pulls you out of that place. So if you get a little bit of success, you don't have something pulling you forth and out of your current situation, then you're going to stagnate. And the problem is if you stay still, what I've learned through my heart is that you go backwards, because your heartbeat goes up and then it flatlines and it goes up and then it flatlines, and you need to go up again in your life. Otherwise you're going to flatline, and you don't want to flatline. And so that's the biggest thing is just having those goals that are pulling you forward. And you got to work it out, because sometimes there's periods of times where those goals are so big and they're putting pressures on different areas of your relationship or your family and different things like that. And you've got to find your own mold, your own rhythm. But that, like, kind of the way your heart goes is it goes up, you know. When you see someone, your family member, you give them up, you give them all of you. You're not going, oh, because of my goals, I'm pouring everything into it. Now I can only give you. And that was something I had to get over my mind, was that kind of tiredness, that kind of that. And I talk about this in the book, but it's 9 to 5. Like, we brought it, okay, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. I switch off at 5. I switch off at this time. I switch off at that. And for me, it was like, no, wait a minute. It's heartbeat to heartbeat. Like, I've got an obligation to show up in the best way I can in every single heartbeat. I'm living on borrowed time. I've been given an incredible gift.
That's something I was going to ask. Do you feel a sense of an intrinsic drive now, because you know you have overcome this great level of adversity from a medical and physical point of view?
Yeah, definitely, and adversity through close relationships that have tried to suppress me. So I feel an obligation to family members who are passed away and who invested in me, who are still here and who invested in me. Friendships like yourself who are investing in me right now for me to tell my story. So I feel that obligation. And then I feel that obligation is, man, I've been given a gift. Like, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to sit in apathy? Am I going to scroll, the junk mail? Am I going to and just be suppressed? A suppressed organism? I don't think a human being was meant to be that. I think a human being was meant to beam out to other people and connect and vibrate on a higher frequency and elevate each other and bring the best out of each other. Think about it. When you make someone else laugh, when you make someone else happy, you do it a lot, you know? And what does it do? It just raises everything up. It can raise someone out. I was in the hospital and I had my stepfather, my mother there, and there's a lot of history, a lot of pain, and I just said something, and I just went, this is a bit of a family reunion. And we all laughed, and it was like, even in that moment, you can have that euphoria, and so for me, yes, there's an obligation. And when if I'm not committing to that vision, or to making the most of that, or to just settling, or no, you don't need to do so much. No, like, don't be that. Like, just be not, but just, make me feel comfortable and stay as you are. If you're not committing to that, then you're neglecting your heart and soul, I think. And you're also, I'm trying to find the word for it, but you're going against the gift that you've been given. When I went into hospital and I was in a coma, they said, they told my family he's going to die. They said tonight he's going to die. He's not going to make it out alive. We can operate either way. He's going to die, but you just let us know what you want us to do. The condition I went to the hospital with, I had a 33% chance. Like, someone who goes in there has a 33% chance of making it out alive. I went into the hospital. I said I couldn't go to the toilet. The nurse came over, looked at my paperwork, said, I don't know why the hell you've been put here. You need to go straight through to ICU. Your organs are dying. They're shutting down. You're dying. So that, and then 6 weeks after surgery, I had another experience where I nearly died. And so I had these multiple different experiences, and it's like, okay, clearly I'm still here. I got to do something while I'm here. I got to do something with the gift that I've been given while I'm here. And anytime I go into, I don't really need to, who cares about what I do? Who's going to be impacted? How am I going to, what can I do? Anytime you go into that, which I think a lot of humanity are in and can go in multiple times, everyone goes into it. Anytime you're into that, then my whole being just deflates, and it's just like I think it's freaking depressing, because you can impact someone every single day. You can impact someone. You can impact your spouse. You can impact your friend. You make me laugh. You're impacting me. You're elevating me. We have a connection. We have a conversation here. We do a bit of some jokes. We have
some semi
some Uzo after the whatever it is,
like some questionably racial jokes about Greeks. And
exactly. And then we leave and we're like, so there's so much as a creator, as a director yourself, there's so much you can create, and in terms of a human experience in every single heartbeat of your life, there's so much that you can create. So don't let people tell you what you do doesn't really matter. It's not going to ripple out. There's too many people in this field anyway. There's too many. Don't let people tell you that. If you think you've got a gift inside you to bring forth and you don't bring forth that, then you're going to deny your soul. You're going to deny who you are. And I personally believe that your soul is eternal, and the character of that soul is one of the most important things that you can focus on working on in this life. So you can corrupt or dilute the purity of that soul, and for many moments in your life you probably do, and you can do that with emotional thinking, you can do that with bringing other people down, with hating on people, and we all do. We all have times when we've done this thing with with impure thoughts, impure actions. You can do that, but you can also do the flip side, and you can build the character of that soul going forth. And for me, having that really helps with the purpose, because it's like, okay, what I do now is just not important. It's not, okay, well, if tomorrow goes boom for me, or for all of us, or my heart bloody bottoms out, then what's the point of me trying here? It's like, no. This is about the character of your soul. Your soul continues on. So if you put in the effort now and something happens tomorrow, guess what? You've left in the best state of that your soul can be in, and you've actually invested in your soul. So that's another way. And also, if you're going to leave, like my grandfather said, an incredible way to leave this planet. And that's really one thing that really motivates me, is like, wow, if you can leave with that much style, that much class, then you're doing something right.
Good stuff. That's actually a really good point for us to segue into the film portion of this episode. Yeah. So and just for our listeners, this is the portion of the podcast where I invite my guests to select a film of their choice, and the reason I do that is because I think that you can learn a lot about a person based on either their favourite film, or in fact maybe their least favourite film, because that's interesting too. But we have chosen, I'm not sure if it's your favourite, but definitely a preferred film of yours, Kyle, which is called The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind, and it's directed by, I've got it up here because I know I'm going to botch however I say this, by Chiwetel Ejiofor. He also stars in the film as well, and it's a 2019 film. But just briefly, I'll sort of explain a little bit what it's about. But it's about a young boy who, living in his home village in Africa. He is ejected from school, but he manages to by a bit of cunning to have this self-directed study, and he eventually saves his village from a very large famine by creating a windmill. So, there's a lot more to the story than that. But Kyle, could you just explain what this film means to you, and why you chose to speak about it today?
Yeah, man. Awesome film, and I watched it recently. But I think it's a story that why do we watch films? Why do we look at these things? Or why do we have these conversations? It's we shift our life experience, we shift our emotion. And that film, I think I rate a film highly if it's shifted something within me. You know what I mean? So you can watch an amazing action film. I think last night I watched Night and Day.
With Tom Cruise. Yeah.
And
it's that's an older one.
Yeah. And it's hilarious, and it's like, it's great. And it might shift you a little bit like with Joy, but
it doesn't have that similar cathartic experience that you get with other films. Yeah, and
that kind of, you have a good meal, and in your mouth you've like that taste is left there, and so like films like that, films that are really powerful, like you might see the same person the next day and go, wow, like that film, or like that film's carried on with me during my week or something like that. So that's the brilliance of it. And this movie, there's some scenes there, with him and his dad, and when he's trying to get his dad to say, Dad, like, I know I'm younger than you. I know, you're meant to be the parent. You're meant to know the way, but I know how to build this windmill. Like, I know what to do. I just need your bike. Like, I just need... I don't want to spoil anything, but, I just, like...
Yeah. Oh, no. If you're watching this and you haven't watched it, then just stop listening or stop listening or watching it.
Yeah. It's, but yeah, I mean, like that moment was such a powerful moment, like his relationship with his father. And I think it's like, it's a moment that echoes for all of us. We're trying to, if we've got something, we know we've got something, we're trying to prove it to the world. All we need is that opportunity, and it shows that you need that. We depend on each other and that connection, and what that boy does for his family, like it just, like it's so inspirational what that kid does for his family, and again, what we're talking about in terms of that impact, like I know it's a used word today, or how should I say, positive change. He added so much positive change to that village. He saved them. You can actually save people, and he did that as a kid. And sometimes it requires you not to go by the book. He snuck into the library and he had to study and he had to work things out. But he had that focus. He had that in mind. He always had that kind of, I've got to find a solution for this problem. I've got to find a solution for the problem. Yeah. And I think that's that when you're going to figure something out, it's when it's that unrelenting drive. And I think another part of it was, don't trust things, I guess, beyond yourself. Like that's what he did. He was like, okay, Father's saying this one's saying the seasons, and like with that weather planning and everything, like, the seasons are going to come in because they've come in the past, or the government is going to come in and they're going to help us out, which actually they do the exact opposite of that. So if you're depending on everyone else, like, I'll get fit once I get a bit of like inspiration, or I'll get I'll change my life once this happens. If you're depending on something else, you're not going to do it. And that's what that kid did. He went, no, I need to figure out a way. He went to his teacher. He went into the library. He was like, I need to figure out a way. It needs to be me, And that's not, maybe you could call it ego. Maybe you could call it certain things, but that was just, I need to find a solution. I'm not going to depend on someone else to find or clean up my mess for me. And that's really what I got from that movie. It was just such an inspiring story. And I think there's so many incredible kids around the world that are doing things like that every single day, which is just like, wow, like it kind of kicks you into gear and go, wow, like if he did that for his village, like what can we do? So, yeah, man, it was just a powerful, powerful movie.
Yeah, and like I sort of actually want to challenge you a little bit in the sense of because one thing that I think was an underlying kind of framework for it, which I took a little issue with, but like in a subtle way, because I feel like there's a sense of this I think over-valorization of this sort of like savior or like great man in this boy. And overlooking the impact, not that, like overlooking the impact that the community have, like, because but it's not one sided in the sense that, okay, don't be curious, don't try and solve problems yourself, but overlooking the fact that the community had, and collectively coming together to help themselves, and there's sort of key scenes in the film where there's fighting amongst themselves, because there's some people who are like, no, okay, I'm going to sell out now and cut my losses and things like that, but then the others are like, no, we should stick together, like what's your sort of thoughts on that, in the sense of that I guess that image of we have to wait for someone to save us in this, and it culminates in this boy genius, arguably, coming to build this windmill, versus, I guess, taking responsibility and coming together as a community to solve problems. So do you see the distinction there, and what's that mean for you?
Yeah, no, good point. I think you're certainly right. So the movie can centralize on that one hero, that one character, that one journey. but it does show you the elements of who was involved, like when the priest got up and he kind of like had that moment, where he was wearing the government leader's branding and everything, and he got up and spoke and tried to bring the fort. So there's, and I think that's what, in any sort of revolution or any sort of, where there's a problem and it's not getting overlooked, I think there's definitely a few different characters that do become the heroes or, on the way, and one person might make it through. Do you know what I mean? And then they're seen as it. It's like a sports team. It's like in companies and all those sorts of things. But, you do need someone to kind of bring it all together. And I think that's what that boy did. I think in the end, he brought it all together through convincing the father. And the father had a lot of sway. The father was kind of looked at as kind of like you had the priest, and then the father was kind of this community like leader person as well. So he's the boy's kind of like the nose of the plane, and then the father's like like the wings spreading out to everyone. Hey, get everyone over, get people over. Let's get this going. Let's get that going. So to a company with different segments of the and everybody is important in that thing. But I feel like if you don't have that kind of whatever it takes, character in that movie, in that moment, then you don't get that result. Everyone's still fighting. Everyone's still trying to find a solution. Everyone's still trying to figure out a way. The dad's still there, right to the end, trying to figure out whatever it takes with this bloody plow. I'm going to find, we're going to be okay. But sometimes you need someone to look at it in a different way, and that's where like great teams, great sports teams, everything. It's like, okay, our left side of the field, we're really weak. What we need to do is maybe we need to bring the flanker over here, and we need to quickly, we got to close down that fly half because we just can't deal when it goes out wide. So whatever it is, you just need to have someone that can come in and look at it from a different side. And I think that's where in a community, like everyone's voice is valued. You value everyone's voice. You let everyone speak. But yeah, he needed the community. He needed people to come together. And you need that campaign. You need to pull people together to believe in you, to create something. 100%. It's not one person. These incredible people, whether they're trying to work out ways to get to Mars, or they're trying to work out all sorts of different things, solutions in our planet. They've got a team of people. They've got people that have believed in them the whole way through. I'm only a conduit of all the people that believed in me and helped me along the way. And me going forth is me taking what my grandparents gave me, me taking what a friend gave me taking what someone who believed in me at a certain moment when I was down and out gave me. I mean, my younger brother, a couple of weeks out of hospital, there was this drama centralized around our friends and all that sort of stuff. And when you go to hospital, I hope you don't have this experience, but when you go to hospital, the first few weeks, I had my 19th birthday in there, so I had all these birthday cards and all this kind of appreciation and everything's like, wow, you're just blown away, and anytime you get appreciation like that, it's like, wow. But then the later weeks, you only see the core people, the real core people. And then, so I came out of hospital and I guess I was quite lonely. I had this health thing this challenge I had to work out. Emailing people in Germany about stem cell research and hearts, and trying to figure everything out. And then I just remember having the people I was staying with wasn't my grandparents. They weren't as loving and compassionate, and they kind of just threw a spaghetti bowl in front of my mouth. Here's your dinner. And so then I just started eating it and started just sobbing. I was obviously trying to add some salt to the pasta, just get some good flavors out of it. It's probably a bit dry too. So so anyway, I found myself, maybe there was some onion in there, and my brother, I think he was 10 or 11 at the time, out of nowhere I just felt this hug. I was like, what the hell? My brother hugged me and he started rubbing my back and he just went, "It's going to be okay, Carl, it's going to be okay." And I was like, he was watching TV, so he could have just kept watching, kept being enamored, but he heard me huddling over trying to make this dish a bit tastier, and he came over and saw a need and hugged me. And that little moment that someone can gift you can be so powerful, and it's something that I still carry in my heart today. You know, whether me and my brother have a good relationship this week or a tumultuous relationship next week, you know, like I'll always carry that forth. And that, I mean, to bring that back to the movie, it's like, it's all these little elements. This person that believes in the kid a little bit more, this person that kind of gets excited, or this, his friend, you know, his friend was great. Like that was something that I was like, wow, his friend was with him the whole way. And I was half expecting, you know, classic movie, the person closest to him betrays him. You know, we've seen so many movies of the betrayal part of the hero's journey. And so that friend was with him the whole way, you know, and like was by his side and believed. And the friend just knew that this kid was different, or he knew, like, you know, like, oh, let me give you this thing. He just knew. So I think that community element is, you can't go anywhere else. We can't go anywhere with just ourselves. We need other people.
Brilliant. I think that's a good point to wrap it up there, Carl. But before we end the episode, you are in the process of launching a book. Can you tell us how we can support it, and also when it is out, how we can get a copy of it so we can read it?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, mate. So pushing my editors for 5th of May, but you know, that's kind of like the date I want, but we'll have to kind of see, you know, but so it'll definitely be either 5th of May or mid-May. So that's when it's coming out. At the moment I've got a crowdfunding campaign, and there's about 8 different pledge levels. You know, and so at $10 you can just say, you know, good luck, I support you. $25 you get the ebook and a poster. $50 you get the book. $100 you get the signed copy of the book. And you know, you get a few different elements as well. So that campaign's going through to May, through to the first few days of May. So that's that target is just to cover the costs and the investment and everything in the book. And yeah, just start bringing some energy to the Decide Your Destiny mission and movement, and start involving people. And you know, every week I'm going to be doing a shout out to each of the people, their businesses they run, and just sharing that good energy around. So yeah, if you wanted to be a part of the movement, jump on board.
Excellent, and we'll have those links in the description. But otherwise, Cole, how else can we find you? Like, where's the best place to, you know, if you want to reach out to learn a bit more about Decide Your Destiny, or get in touch with you, where's the best place to reach you?
Yeah, for sure. So, Savlaki eats. No. Sorry, I forgot that. That's a segment after the.
Yeah. That's the second podcast.
Yeah. Sorry. That's the other business that we're going to set up together. YouTube channel Decide Your Destiny, and then the website's decideyordestinybook.com. That's where the book will be, and that's where all the information will be. And then like on LinkedIn, I'm Carl Spyrides, Instagram, same sort of thing. So you can find me on those channels. Good work.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming on, Carl. I've really enjoyed our conversation, both around your journey and also the film as well. And I hope, like I said, that we'll be able to get you on some other time. And it'd be really awesome to hear once you have launched your book. I'd love to get you back on again after that to hear how everything's going. So thanks for coming on, and we'll speak with you again soon.
Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate the support. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, Carl.